Welcome to the Expert in You podcast, the show for professional entrepreneurs, experts, authors, speakers, coaches, and consultants who are ready to elevate their business, expand their influence, and boost their bank accounts. Join us as we dive deep with industry-leading experts who share their top strategies, invaluable insights, practical tips, and personal experiences to help you achieve extraordinary growth and success. Whether you're looking to sharpen your skills, stay ahead of the curve, or find that competitive edge, this podcast is your ultimate resource for unlocking your full potential. So tune in, get inspired, grab your coffee, and let's unlock the expert in you. My guest today is Dr. John Dentico. John, welcome to my show.
Oh, great to be here. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. How about you? And where are you in the world?
I am close to Richmond, Virginia, Northwest Virginia.
Yes. So have you lived there all of your life?
No, I've been here for about the last 7 years. I've pretty much lived around the country quite a bit and in different places. I even lived in Vegas for 2 years. And
that
that
had
was
to be
what an
interesting.
eye-opener that was.
I'm sure. And not to mention the hot weather, right?
Yeah, people say, oh, it's a dry heat. I said, no, it's an oppressing heat.
Right.
So, especially in the summertime, it's very, very, very hot.
Yes. Well, John, why don't you just give everyone a quick introduction of what you do and who you help, and then we are going to jump into some juicy stuff.
Great. Well, my name's Dr. John Dentico. I only use the term doctor on 2 occasions. One is when I submit proposals for speaking events, and the second is when I make dinner reservations. I find it just incredibly helpful to get yourself a good table.
The whole influence thing.
Yeah, that's right. It's all about the influence. I own a practice called LeadSimm LLC. LeadSimm LLC was started almost 30 years ago, based on, and it stands for leadership simulations. I created a leadership simulation that actually demonstrates the efficacy of 21st century leadership. It uses no computers. It's normally 40 people in a room playing 7 different stakeholder groups around a realistic problem. The scenarios are written to be as realistic as I can make them, because part of the simulation idea is if you can work your way through the simulation, you can actually take that and go off and do something with it the next day. You'll learn the techniques and the processes of 21st century leadership. I'm also involved certainly in my own podcast, the Throttle Up Leadership podcast. I'm the author of a book that's, I'm proud to say, won an award in the UK. It's called Throttle Up: How to Accelerate the Impact of 21st Century Leadership. I was born and raised in New York City, in Manhattan, and then later on in Queens. It was my initial dream to become a naval officer, which I did do. And I served for 20 years, 11 years active, and 19 or so in the reserves. My best friend today, we were lieutenants in the Navy together. I've known him for a long time. And I just got involved in the doctoral program at the University of San Diego in leadership studies. And I've tried to bring this concept of 21st century leadership to the forefront. It's been something that's been going on for 30 years in my practice. And I can tell you honestly, I feel as though I've reached right now today, as I talk to you, Ann, I've reached an inflection point, because all the things that we may talk about here on this podcast has brought us to this place of incredible change. And it's my opinion that the model of leadership that I have developed over the course of the last 30 years, which has a single premise, and the single premise is contribution. The door's open. Who wants to help? Who wants to jump in here? Who has an idea? We make no judgments about people in a room. Never do. Just everybody's invited to participate. Everybody's invited to help us get through the dilemmas. So that's a short kind of a trip around my life.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing that. And by the way, thank you for your service. I appreciate we honor you and thank you so much for that.
I have to tell you that I was at the dry cleaner a while back, and I met a guy who was a Vietnam veteran, as I am. I was on a Navy ship. He was a Marine veteran, and he taught me the perfect response to when people say, "Thank you for your service." And my response nowadays is, "You were worth it."
Oh, wow. I love that. Well, what would we do without people like you that serve? So thank you for that. I never want to miss those opportunities to thank veterans and people that have served. So, all right, this is going to be a great show. So, talking about 21st century leadership, one of the reasons I wanted you on here, John, is because so many times people are teaching leadership in companies, in corporations, but it's a lot of principles. It's not real world time experience. It's not real action. And that's one of the things that you do very differently. Like you said, it's really a simulation. And so I really want to dive into that because we know that things don't stick when people just hear things. We know people don't need information. They don't need more information. What really helps people is real time experience, role playing, things that are going to make it really stick. So that's what your whole model is around. And I think that's really innovative. I think a lot of people are not doing it to the degree that you are doing. They might have a little bit of it, but not to the same degree. I think mostly it's teaching, it's a lot of writing, it's a lot of learning, but it's not practical application.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I would absolutely agree with you. I have tried to, the simplest way of saying it is I have tried to take the ideas off the drawing board and put them in and create processes or practices
Mhm.
that people can actually go out and do the next day. And it's more than just the simulations. For example, I've invented or created a strategic thinking process. I used
Mm,
that recently with a company in Texas. They're a fence building company, 7 locations throughout the United States.
mhm,
And they were miffed, if you will. They said, we're paying people money, we've got quarterly bonuses, and we just can't seem to find the missing pieces. We just don't understand what are we doing? We're giving them money and it's just not working. So we
mhm,
met with a group of 14, 15 people, including the general manager, the president of the company, and a vertical and horizontal cross section of the people. And we found the missing pieces. We found what the problem was. And I'll just mention 2 things. One is they had no initial training program for new people that came into the organization. There was no training,
mhm.
you know.
That happens a lot.
It
Mhm.
means a lot because that's such a big requirement today across the board.
Right.
And the second one was they themselves came to admit that they were not internally organized enough to
Mm,
to in fact optimize the fence installation work that they dole out, if you will, to
mhm,
subcontractors. So parts were missing, fences weren't there on time, locking systems weren't there. So now they're reworking themselves,
mhm.
much to their credit, to say, hey, you know what? We have to be organized so that when we deliver a project to a subcontractor, they're ready to go. So
Yeah.
instead of taking 12 to 15 days to do an installation, it takes 7. And if you could do 2 installations in the time it took one, then everybody's profit goes up. Everybody makes more money, and those are the kinds of things. So I love doing things like creating processes in a practice. I'm a
Mhm.
big DIY guy. I grew up as a big do-it-yourselfer, and sometimes you have to invent stuff to make things work. And that's always been sort of a thing with me.
Mhm,
So, and it's just overlaid over to my practice work. I also have a methodology for shifting culture
mhm,
using storybooks, how to create your own storybook of successes to lay a pathway for people to follow and to understand this is what it takes to be successful in the organization. And I'll just mention those. But I'm very proud and happy of the work that I've been able to do and teaching people, this is how you go from point A to point B, step one,
mhm.
step two, step three, step four, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, and I think it's so easy for, especially like if you're talking about small businesses, like probably the fence company you were talking about. They got into business, but along the way they get bigger and they grow, and then things start kind of not getting done. And as you're bringing in more employees, people wonder why they have a revolving door. But it's because they don't have the right onboarding systems. They don't have the right training. I remember, John, this has been years ago, that I was coaching a home care agency when I was working with small businesses. And I said, what kind of training? He had a revolving door, was losing employees right and left. And I said, what kind of training do you do with people? And he said, well, we don't really do a lot of training with them. And I said, why is that? And he said, well, what if we put all that time and effort into them and they leave? And I said, what if you put all that time in? What if they stay? I mean, think about that. That's the bigger problem. What if they stay? And then you have people that aren't productive, that don't really, they're not trained, they're not really qualified for the job the way they could be. So I think this is a really important thing to talk about, because again, so often these are missing pieces in companies, and they wonder why why the productivity isn't there, why the profitability isn't there. They think it's more expensive to train people than it is to just bring in new people. And that's just not true in any company I've ever worked in. It's more expensive to have a revolving door in your business than it is to take the time and the money to train people.
And there's another part to that if you don't mind me commenting on.
Of course not. This is for you. This is your
Yeah, I
podcast.
see it now. I had a guest on my podcast named Arnard Lucas, and I asked him this question, and he's in high tech. He's a high tech director of high technology for a company. And I asked him the difference between the work world. You see this all the time. Well, the jobs or the people getting laid off, and especially you see that in the high tech world. And there's other reasons for that. And the question I asked him, posed to him, was, well, what about talent? And he brought me to the realization that really there's two work worlds. There's the world you see all the time, jobs, the job market, which, by the way, is not a number, it's an estimate. The job market's an estimate. So, and it's the best estimate we have, or we can make. And there's a talent market. And there's
Right.
always room for great talent. As he said to me, we're always looking for great talent. Whatever you read in the papers, whatever you see on the internet about jobs, loss of jobs, remember, we're always looking for great talent. And I think, to your point, Ann, if you want to keep great talent, you have to understand you're going to have to make an investment in them. And I think
Yes.
that's absolutely right on the money. There's a second part of this that people don't see many times. You train somebody. Well, the best, maybe today, in today's world, the best you can hope for is maybe hanging on to somebody for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
The days of 30-year employment in a particular organization, one organization, I think are gone. I think it's safe to
Yes,
say that it's
I
gone.
agree. Mm-hmm.
So if you've got them for 5 or 6 years, and then they say, it's time for something new. I think I have to move on now. Okay, fine. What you're doing when they move on with the training that you've given them, and of course it takes a very magnanimous view to this, is you're feeding the ecosystem of the environment within which you live. Those people take what you've learned, what they've learned from you, and they might move on and make another organization better because of what you taught them. And I think that's something that's many times sort of lost in the translation, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's so valuable. It also, I think for a lot of people, even in, they do really well in a career, and then they decide, I want to do it for myself. I want to move on. And we know what an impact business and entrepreneurship, small business and entrepreneurship has in our country and even in the world. So again, I like that you said you're kind of feeding the ecosystem. Great talent. I think that's really a great way to look at it. Hi, friend. I have an exciting announcement. I hope you're enjoying this episode of Expert in You podcast, but I have to ask you, have you checked out the latest issue of Expert in You magazine yet? It's jam-packed with rich content, powerful strategies, inspiring stories, and so much more to help you elevate your business and personal growth. Don't miss out. Go grab your digital copy now and join our community of experts making a difference every day. Go to expertinyoumagazine.com and check out your digital copy today. Transform your expertise into success with Expert in You magazine. It's not just a publication, it is a movement. One of the things you said, John, when you and I had a conversation about what we were going to talk about on this podcast, you said you want to help people create an environment where people can do their best work. And I absolutely love that, because so often it's just not there for people. The environment is not there for people to soar, for people to be their very best, and to really help people rise. So I want to unpack that a little bit. If you would just elaborate on that a little bit more.
Um, sure. I'm in a sense making a shift in my own business and in my own thematic, if you will, of my business. Last year, or this past year, my thematic was leadership training for a talent-driven world. And I'm, as you well know, the only constant thing is change.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to keep up with the change here a little bit. And my thematic now has changed to the future of work. Meaning is the new money.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole idea is, what can an organization do to create an environment where people come and seek and gain a level of meaning from the things they do in the organization? I want their work to mean something to them, to the other people that are there. People want to matter. We've talked about this.
Right.
And they want their work to matter. They want to have impact. It's my belief at this point that we have reached an inflection point, an incredible inflection point. And I was thinking about this morning. It may sound like it's a little way off, but I've waited 30 years for this moment. And because the model of leadership that I have built over the course of the 30 years, in
Mm-hmm.
my opinion, fits perfectly with the world we find ourselves in right now, as we're talking about the influx of artificial intelligence in
Oh, you read my mind. I was going to talk about AI here in a
artificial
minute. Go ahead.
combined with
Mm-hmm.
combined with the post-pandemic world that, is we're gaining some distance on right now, but it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
And this notion that, as I said before, that people are searching for meaning. So AI, the post-pandemic world, and now as we see in Amazon and PricewaterhouseCoopers, this idea of returning people to the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
All of these are an inflection point where we have to say, wait a minute, if we choose, and every organization has that choice, if we choose to have a 50% hybrid workforce, 50% and 50% here, whether we choose to bring them back, what kind of leadership model are we going to use to bring this work together to make people effective and efficient?
Mm-hmm.
And I will add this piece to it because this is such an interesting piece. If we look at Elon Musk and SpaceX, okay, no matter what you think about Elon, I mean, we'll just push him aside for a second. But if you look at SpaceX, what have they done? How did they get here? In a sense, how were they able to be the only guys who can put a rocket ship in space to rescue two astronauts?
Right.
How did they do that? And the answer, and I think this is going to portend another point of the inflection, and that is rapid prototyping. Rapid prototyping, where you go out and you say, okay, look, here's what we're going to do. In 5 to 6 years from now, we're going to do this. We're going to be here. Okay. Now, in order to do that, we have to just get out there and start working on it, devising the best capabilities we can.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to make mistakes. Rapid prototyping is about making mistakes and finding out what doesn't work. But every time we learn something, we're going to make it better the next time around. So this whole I think that companies are going to have to look at a leadership model that invites people to come in and be part of the process, to contribute where they can, what they can, at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, developing a rapid prototyping entrepreneurial mindset for the
Mm-hmm.
future. Because change, the kind of transformational change that we're seeing, that we're part of, you and I are part of, and AI,
Right.
is a transformational change. We can't just sit back and react any longer.
Right.
We have to
I
be.
mean, we're just learning the internet, John.
What's that?
I said, we're just now learning the internet. Now there's AI.
And that's right. I now have a chat GPT. I kind of was a little slow to get there, but now have a chat GPT account. And I just finished, if you don't mind me saying, I just finished my credential as an artificial intelligence management professional with the Artificial Intelligence Management Institute. So I've learned a lot about the issues surrounding the ethics of the use of AI, how to use it, when to use it, what you tell people you're doing with it, to be, open about it, and the biases. I mean, AI is not objective. There are
Right.
biases built into it, whether they are intentional or whether they are unintentional. It's just a person is doing the programming or is setting up the algorithm for a certain data sets. How does that person do it, and why did they do it that way? So it's chaotic in some respects, and as they say, chaos brings opportunity if you're looking in the right place to do the right kinds of things.
So I would love to talk about this just a little bit, because when you're talking about doing simulation and role playing and getting in a room with 40 people, some people might say, well, you can do that with AI now. We don't need a Dr. John to come in and do this. What would you say to that? Because I do think that a lot of people are thinking about we
Right.
can do a lot with AI, and they're missing opportunity. So I would love for you to talk about that a little bit.
I had a guest on my podcast by the name of Ed Temple. Ed Temple is a coach, MCC. He's in Canada. Great guy. And he has an AI coaching tool called Enzo. Okay. And so we were talking about this, exactly what you're saying. Wait a minute, is Enzo going to take over coaching?
Mhm.
And he said, well, here's the way I see it. 75%, maybe 80% of the redundant things we do, AI will probably handle a lot of that. And then he hit me with the line. And the line was, which makes the 20% reserved for humans even more important. And I said, you know what, Ed? I absolutely agree with that.
I agree.
In the end, no matter what tools we've seen at the internet, right? I mean, I remember building my first computer. It had a whopping 1 megabyte of RAM.
Mhm.
Today, 1 megabyte is nothing. And everybody said, "Oh, I'm sure you may remember this, Ann. You may remember this. When computers first came onto the scene, people said, you know what? We will never need paper again. We will never need paper. It's all electronic now. Yeah, look at the reams of paper that are sold every day. It's just
Right,
incredible. There's stores that do nothing but sell reams of paper every day. It's so funny.
right.
So in
Yeah.
the end, no matter what anybody says, and this is my belief, it's always about the people. It's
Mhm.
always about the people in the end. What I try to do in my work is bring people together and really key off of the human instincts, the
Mhm.
humanness of people to want to get together, talk to one another in the same room, collaborate openly,
Mhm.
learn from doing something right, learn from doing something wrong. The sense of human connection to me is so very important. I always say nothing will ever replace human liaison, and
Mhm.
nothing will ever replace a handshake. Nothing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm very much think you can take a lot of what I teach in terms of the principles and the practices of leadership, go out into the world, and then use AI to say, hey, I want AI to do this for me, but I've got to make a connection here between me and someone else.
Mhm.
So that's kind of my perspective.
I 100% agree with you. I think that it's bringing people together, that human touch. We saw how hungry people were for that after COVID, and how people missed that, and they really missed being with other humans. And I also believe that when you get a lot of collaborative minds together, where can AI really fall into that? In my opinion, it can't, right? I think AI is great for you want to go do something or pull something up or learn something, but it's not going to replace a John in there with a room full of people helping them navigate something and work through something and build something better. And I for me, even as a coach, it's so important to help people implement. AI is not going to help them implement, right? They still need that accountability. They still need that kind of hand holding along the way. Again, it's not about information. It's about implementation. It's about change. So you brought up just some really great points. And I think a lot of people have been scared by AI, but I think if you embrace it and you find ways to use it to build on what you already have, just like the coach you were talking about, it's really opening doors of opportunity for people that I think you just have to look at things differently with it.
I agree. I mean, if one kind of example would be a pilot flying a plane on automatic pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Get up, you hit the automatic pilot. Okay, take me to Denver. There we go. But remember, the pilot's sitting there,
Yeah.
doing the communication,
Yeah.
watching the instruments, watching the panels, looking at the weather. Those kinds of things that a human can do probably better, at least at this point. The other thing too is in my work, I really enjoy being in a room with a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
One of my goals too is to help people connect on a human heart to heart level.
Right.
If you do those I mean, it can bring the best out in people. I think that there will be no replacement for that. Sure, you could do it in AI, but just as you said, after a while, you hunger to be with
Yes.
people. You need to be with people. Look what it's done. Look at the criticisms right now. I'm sure you've seen this, Dan, of the lockdowns for children in schools.
Oh gosh, yes, yes. And we're
Well,
seeing the repercussions of all of that. Mm-hmm.
the repercussions of all of that. You know what? Some 7, 8, 9-year-old child wants to be with their friends.
Yes.
They want to connect with their friends and sit and talk or whatever, use blocks or whatever they choose to do at that moment. And we took that away from them, and that's really been very hurtful, I think.
Yes, I totally agree. This has been such a great conversation. I know we could go on for a long time around this. One of the things I do want to share that we didn't talk about is, I know we won't have time to go into it, but I'll give people a way to get a hold of you. You've actually developed 70 trainings to develop strategy. Did I say that right?
Well, I just published my 74th podcast episode today. But I have a strategic thinking methodology that I created when I was working as a special consultant
Mm-hmm.
to the Division of Public Safety Leadership at Johns Hopkins. And it was a government grant, and the group I was working with was tasked with writing the national strategy to combat identity theft. And
Mm,
the, we couldn't do it from a strategic planning perspective because in strategic planning, you start with the ends in mind.
mm-hmm.
We had no idea what the problems really were. So the difference between strategic thinking and strategic planning is simply in planning, you're looking to find answers to questions. In strategic thinking, you're trying to figure out what the questions really are, what the
Right.
problems really are. So that kind of that's my summation of that.
Well, you can hear his expertise, his many years of experience, the amazing things he's done, so much worldly knowledge and experience that you've had. And I love this. So, John, how can people get a hold of you? And then who are you most looking for as far as clients? Who
Uh,
makes it the best client for you?
the best client for me is small to medium sized businesses.
Okay.
Who want to get up on step, if you will, with the changes that are coming,
Mm-hmm.
the AI issues, to help them create an environment where people find meaning and create an environment, yeah, where people
Mm-hmm.
come to work, do their best work every day. And as I mentioned to you earlier, I haven't done this in the past, but I'm looking forward this year to hanging out my coaching shingle and
Mm-hmm.
helping individuals, if you will, and groups really maneuver through the difficulties and the complexities of this crazy world we find ourselves in.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being my guest. This was wonderful. And until next time, everyone, I make sure that you subscribe to the show, share it. And we always say sharing is caring. We appreciate you so much for being a listener. And we just passed episode 250, and I'm really proud of that. So
Nice.
we are looking for this to continue to explode in 2025. And we can't do that without listeners like you. So thank you so much. Also, if you need help adding 6 to 7 figures to your business in 2025, and you want to do that with high-end premium clients, then make sure you book a call with me at acarden.com and talk to me about my $1 Million Accelerator program, where we help you step into the expert spotlight, generate clients like clockwork, and get paid what you deserve. So have an amazing day, everyone. God bless you. Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in today. If you're as excited as I am about scaling up your influence, business, and bank account, then I have just the thing for you. But first, make sure you subscribe to the show. Second, make sure you share it with someone you care about, because sharing is caring. And third, head on over to join me in my next free virtual exclusive workshop, where we'll explore proven strategies to boost your business and maximize your potential. Look, it doesn't matter if you're just starting out or if you're looking to take your business to the next level. My workshops are designed for you. So head on over to expertinyouworkshop.com to reserve your spot and get ready to transform your expertise into extraordinary success. I'm looking forward to seeing you there and helping you achieve incredible growth. Until next time, make sure you're always seeking the expert in you, and God bless. Have an amazing day.